Hey class, welcome back. And as you can see, I turned on the controls of my tail and I found out I made a huge mistake. So apparently I had my bouncing ball jumping in the wrong direction. So it was jumping towards the tail rather than having the tail fall behind. So if this happens to you, I just want to show you really quickly how you can fix it. It's not such a big deal, but better to learn now than later. So what we're going to do is select that ground control, and I'm going to turn off my tail's visibility, and I'm going to turn off the eyes as well. This will just make it easier to adjust the keyframes. Then I'm going to go to Windows, Animation Editor, and my Graph Editor, and I really just want to work on my Translate Z at the moment. The rotation, I'm probably just going to fix manually, but if I click and drag and select all of my keyframes, I can actually use the scale tool, middle mouse button in empty space, and then click and drag, and you'll see on the bottom left, you'll see that my time scale is being adjusted, and I want it to try and drag to -1. So I'm going to get it somewhere close. There we go. And then I can also move these keyframes, so using that move tool, and just if you hold down shift, you can make sure you're dragging them in line. So I'm just going to undo that and do it one more time. Hold down shift and now drag them to the left so that they start at frame 1 and end at frame 54, I think, 52, 54. All right, and I can dock my graph editor for later. In order to see the scale information, you may have to switch your workspace to modeling standard. But now the last thing I want to do is switch my shot camera. So right now I'm just going to turn that tail back on. So go back to your perspective view, grab that brown controller and turn back on the tail. And then to switch my shot cam to the other side of the model, so instead of going from right to left, it'll look like my ball is jumping from left to right. What you need to do is go to your outliner and grab your shot camera and press F to focus on it. And now if I zoom out, you can see it's really far away from my model. But that's no problem. All I need to do is move it to the other side of my model. So right now it's at Translate X 1000, but if I make that -1000, that will be on the other side, and I'm also going to rotate the camera from 90 to -90. And now if I hit play, it is all fixed. All right, now we can move forward. So now the first thing I'm going to do is double check that it's all nice and fixed, and then I'm going to make a new shot camera. So go to View, Create Camera from View, and this one is going to be the shot camera but zoomed out. And I'm just going to unlock it and move this camera about a tiny bit to zoom out. And just so I can use this camera for some planning on my tail arcs and the offset and follow through. Okay, so if I go to frame 1, I'm going to grab the main controller on my ball and open up my animation editor again, or graph editor again. And this time I want to make a motion trail, but only on the Translate Y. So while I was here, I just noticed a little bit of weirdness on my arcs. So I'm just going to fix them really quick. There we go. Cool. And now select and highlight them all. And then go up to Visualize and Create Editable Motion Trail. This time I don't need to show the frame numbers. I'm just using it as reference. Cool. So now you can see the path of my ball. And then I'm going to use the blue pencil tool. So what the blue pencil tool is it lets me draw on my camera or on my viewport and make notes and just kind of see where the arcs are going to be and plan out the tail location. I can also turn on ghosting, so that will show me, since my drawings are going to go on each individual frame of my timeline, similar to Sync Sketch, but ghosting will show me the path. So I'm going to just kind of draw where I think the tail should be. Remember that your tail is always going to be dragging behind, so it's going to be following the path of the ball, but just slightly behind. So I'm just going to draw where I think the tail starts and where it will go up. So once it hits the ground, it's actually the base of the tail will shrink down first, and then the end of the tail will be dragging behind the base of the tail, so it will make this nice kind of S curve. So similar when it's jumping off the ground, the tail is going to be shaped kind of like a C or a J, reverse J, as it's dragging behind as it comes off the ground. So once it's at the top, I think I'm making it drag a little too much here. I'll show you a little later. If you have the tail kind of droop quite as much as I do, it gives the tail more of a down feeling than a lightness and an up feeling. So maybe make yours a little higher than mine. Now I'm just going to plan out where it is here. Going to follow along. And definitely check out some reference online to see how you can plan out your tail as well. So I just wanted to give you an example of what it looks like if you have the tail kind of dragging down too much. You can see the emphasis on the down is unrealistic in this version. And here's a little slowed down. So if you can, make sure that you're lifting that tail up a little more. Okay, so I just want to show you the actual path of a tail looks much more like a wave than it does the V shapes that we're seeing in our regular ball hop. So basically when the tail gets down to the bottom, it's kind of moving a little bit back and down, so it doesn't have the point that you normally see. There we go. So keep that in mind while you're animating, and that kind of wavy motion is created by the drag and the offset created by the tail. So let's just take a really quick look at this rig. I jumped into perspective view. So you have to be careful with the NURBS curves or the controls at the base of the tail. The ring on the inside just moves it slightly. You want to use the ring or the circle on the outside as your control, and that will affect the entire tail. The other controls are also circles, so you want to grab these. And now if you use rotate, you can rotate the entire tail at once, which is really nice. So you can use that, and then you'll also be adjusting those circles individually as well. One thing of note, if you select them backwards, so from the smallest part of the tail to the largest, and then use your rotation tool, it will move the pivot point to the base of the tail. So it's kind of up to you how you want to work. Now you can go to Create, Sets, and Quick Selection Set. And this will create a selection set that you can add to your shelf. And whenever you click that button, it will select all of these NURBS curves for you. So you can do that for all of these curves, or for the individual curves, you can label them. I do that sometimes as well. And it just allows you to select those curves quicker. Now comes the fun part where you get to make all of your adjustments to the tail. I highly recommend that you start with the control closest to the end of the tail first, and then work your way out. I have one more a recommendation, which is sometimes it's difficult to grab onto these controls from the side view. So if you want to put two panels, so this button, and on the right side, left side do your shot cam, and then on the right side have your perspective view, so you can always grab the controls in perspective and see how it's adjusting in the shot cam view. And I recommend that you use the shot cam view on the left hand side rather than the zoomed out, so you can see exactly what you're going to be recording. And then finally, if you are hitting play to see what your adjustments are starting to look like, then just know that whichever window was last active is the window that it will play in. So make sure you click on your shot cam, hit play, and then you'll see your animation in action. And then I just wanted to go over some of the key poses and paths. I do want you to discover this for yourself, but just make sure that your tail is dragging along behind the curve. And when your ball hits the ground, I want you to make sure that the base of the tail is dipping down first, the top of the tail is falling behind. Same thing when the ball jumps off the ground. Make sure that that tail is following along in the arc of the movement. And then when you get to the top of the arc, just make sure that the tail has enough lift, because it will kind of arc over as your ball is reaching the apex of the movement. So make sure that you're checking your curves, make sure that the tail has appeal all the way through. I definitely think you can improve upon what I've done, but give it your best shot. Okay, so once you're done animating your tail, I want you to prepare your file for playblasting. So make sure you're hiding the NURBS curves, that you're hiding your resolution gate. Double check those render settings. Make sure that your preset is like HD 1080, just something a little higher resolution. And then in your viewport window, if you make sure textured is turned on, shadows can be nice, screen space ambient occlusion, multi-sample anti-aliasing improves the quality. And then just preview it. And if you do want to remove some things from your heads-up display, you can also remove that view axis. And I remove the camera name just for kicks, but you can always turn those back on later. Finally, just make sure you're previewing it. I like the motion of my tail. I think it looks pretty good. There's definitely some things I would change about it, but give it your best shot. Playblast and upload it when you get a chance. All right, hope this helped. Thanks so much for all your hard work.